Hello folks, this is Johnny again, and guess what? I finally managed to set up my recording setup in a way that the Pod HD Pro is out of the picture and I can finally sell it. Yes! So if you're interested in taking it off my hands, you'll find links to different forums in the description where I posted a couple of details and also tone demos, because I also made fresh tones on that unit. So when you buy it off my hands, you don't only get the Pod HD Pro, you also get some of the best tones that I ever made with that thing, if I do say so myself. Again, please excuse me and forgive me if that came across arrogant. No, that's not the point. It's just the last couple of months that I was working with TH3 so much and dialing in all these very different tones from very different bands gave me a complete new perspective, fresh ears, fresh skill sets, and I applied that to the pod. Yeah, seriously, that actually made me think if I should really sell it or not, or rather keep it as backup. But right now it is the more reasonable thing to do to sell it. So now I would like to give you a few final tips when working with the Pod HD, and then afterwards walk you a little bit through the adventure of how I got to my new recording setup and what I'm doing right now. So first of all, you may notice with the Pod HD the upper mid-range is quite harsh, that 1 to 3K area. And I find when you turn down the resonance on the cap simulation, it actually smooths how do you say that? It's smoothening it out quite a bit. So really try that out. On some of these tones that are made for it now, I actually turned it all the way down to 0 and it sounds much better actually. And if you then still have a little bit of problem with harshness, then take the parametric EQ, set the frequency to 70%, it's still annoying me, and the Q to 70%, and set the level to somewhere between 30 to 40%. And that's also taking care of that 2K range that can be quite harsh with the pod. You may also notice the modeling compared to today's standard sounds a touch sterile. And I find in order to give it more life, boosting the master knob in the deep amp settings can help quite a bit. On top of that, also the saturation. That kind of gives the whole thing a bit more life. You do feel like something is being driven harder and it's reacting to your playing a little bit more. It's just a little touch to counteract the sterile feel of the older modeling generation. And lastly, try to go at it with fresh ears. Much the same way that I did it now with TH3, going just for very different tones from very different bands. That will give you a new perspective. I actually ended up using cabinets on those pod tones now that I never used before, because back then I thought they sounded awful. But now I'm noticing for different styles they sound perfect. Okay, so that's it for my final tips working with the Pod HD. Okay, and now let me tell you how I actually got to my new recording setup, and what I'm actually doing you will find out at the very end of this story. So, while I was still working with the Pod HD Pro, my initial idea was I would connect it to my Scarlett interface via SPDIF. So the pod converts the guitar signal into digital, and then it gets sent to the Scarlett, also still in digital format, and it just stays digital. So there's no extra analog conversion and then again to digital conversion, because that's really not ideal. Also with the connectivities and the preamps on the Scarlett, you can introduce more noise, and of course that is to be avoided. So using SPDIF really would have been the best solution. But sadly, on the Pod HD Pro model, not just my unit, in general, that model, the SPDIF didn't quite work right. I don't know if they fixed that in the X revision. So what happened was the pod would only sync up that digital communication, that work clock, at 96 kilohertz. Below that it wouldn't really work. At 88.2 it would get very crackly, and at 48 barely anything came through. At 44.1 nothing came through. But at 96 somehow it worked just fine. And now you may think, well then just work at 96 kilohertz. And yes, that actually worked out pretty fine. I didn't have any latency issues or any other problems really. But still, for me personally, 96 kilohertz, it's just creating stupidly large file sizes when you record. And for me personally, also unnecessarily large. I think for recording, 44.1 kilohertz is plenty enough. With bit depth, that's another issue. We record at higher bit depth and then render down to a lower bit depth for other reasons, but those reasons don't really apply to sample rate, and that's for a whole another video, and that was wrong grammar right there. And with these larger file sizes, of course, my RAM would also be hit harder. And because more samples would have to be processed in the same amount of time, my CPU would be hit harder. Although, again, I didn't really run into any issues. Latency was fine. I could still monitor and record in real time without much problem. The problem was when I exported a mix. That would take quite a lot of time, because rendering from 96 kilohertz down to 44.1, sometimes the speed would drop below real-time playback. So it really hindered my workflow when I wanted to export a mix and then check it on other devices and sound systems. I would always have to wait so long and patient when it comes to these things. Okay, so using SPDIF was not the best solution. It works, but it's not the best solution for me. Now, another option would be just to use the pod itself as interface for recording and mixing and what have you, and take the Scarlett out of the picture. Yes, that also works. Then I could record at 44.1 kilohertz again, but there are other things on the other side that again hindered my workflow. For example, I also record tutorials. For that I do need the Scarlett now. It gives me the best results I ever had when recording tutorials. And that whole setup is again another video of its own. And besides making music and recording tutorials, of course I also do other all-day, everyday stuff. Watching videos on YouTube or playing video games, although that's quite rarely nowadays. But still, you know, I also want to have an option to do everyday stuff, and using the pod for all that is also, again, not very ideal. I don't want to have that turned on all day. I just don't want that. Also, now thinking about it, I constantly switch between speakers and headphones, and with the pod you cannot set the levels separately on those two. And that can also hinder my workflow while mixing a little bit. Because when I want to switch from one to the other, I don't want to have to fiddle with the volume first, so I have the same volume matching, so I can make a rational decision here, or a rational judgment. Of course, that is a real nitpick, but now with the Scarlett, where you can set those levels separately, I'm pretty spoiled. It's really much better when you don't have to worry about level matching and you can just focus on listening to your mix. So another option might be you would just have to switch between interfaces. Use the pod for recording and the Scarlett for mixing or other stuff. But that's again, bad workflow. Constantly switching between interfaces is no good. It's really annoying. So yeah, there we have all these pros and all these cons. And that is what led me to get a DI box and try that out. And yes, the workflow was exactly what I wanted. But then we have this other problem that the DI quality is, well, it is good, don't get me wrong, it is very good, but not as good as with the Pod HD. And bottom line, quality goes over convenience. So there was that. Now the DI box, I already sent that back and I'm still waiting to get the money back. So I was stuck with a less than ideal workflow, and I wasn't quite happy with that, not quite happy. And then it came to me. I still have the Pod X3 live. packed up in a corner catching dust. And I thought, why don't I just try that out, see how it works? And lo and behold, the SPDIF works perfectly fine also at 44.1 kHz. That's good. Okay, what about the eye quality? Does it match up to the ForTiorI Pro? And guess what? It does. That really surprised me. I'm kind of guessing they actually used the same preamps there because I can barely hear a difference. And if I do hear a difference, it is so minute I can just completely discard it. So that quite surprised me. And that's it now. Here, it's not the prettiest setup. I hope you can see that. My old Pod X3 Live sitting here on the desk, and there's this Scarlett. Yeah. So the pod is connected via SPDIF to the Scarlett. I can record through that, and it's giving me good quality, a very good quality, the same as before. And the ForTiorI Pro is all packed up already and ready to be sold. In any case, that's it for this video. So there you have my new recording setup. The ForTiorI Pro is ready to go. I'm such a rhyming monster. And I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like, subscribe, leave a comment below. And those new tones, I will make them available for everybody sometime in the future. Not immediately though. So if you happen to get my pod now with these tones, I'm sorry, but you will probably not be the only one who has these tones. But you will definitely get them way ahead of time. So, and then I will see you in the next video. Cheers!